You're live on the AM Report. I'm Ayanda Nyati. It's great to have you with us. So, as expected, the release of 19,000 prisoners has drawn much debate. The inmates, of course, will be released in an effort to decongest the country's overpopulated jails. Now, as of Friday, we heard, of course, that there were about 198 coronavirus cases in our prisons. Inspecting judge for SA prisons, that's Justice Edwin Cameron, has been calling for the release of inmates. He joins us now via Skype to explain why perhaps this might have been a good thing. Justice Cameron, thanks very much for your time. Welcome to the all-new AM Report. It's great to have you with us. The 19,000 figure has, been, I guess, quite a salient point in the discussions themselves. Some suggesting that this isn't enough, even though it's a step in the right direction. Give us a sense of where you stand insofar as that conversation is concerned.
Good morning, Ayanda, and good morning to your listeners, and congratulations on your new format. Ayanda, let me start by saying that this is a disaster for us all. It's a disaster for our economy. It's a disaster especially for our less resourced populations who don't have the comfort that I, for example, have this morning in my own home. But it's a particular disaster in our prisons, in our correctional centers. And this is a worldwide acknowledgement that our prisons are what one United States scientist called a petri dish. It's a dish where contagion multiplies massively. So what the minister has done and what the president has signed off on is absolutely necessary. I'll make another point. It's completely in accordance with what is happening internationally, calls by the UN, calls by the WHO and other countries, including on our own continent, Uganda and Nigeria. So what government has done is correct. Let me add to that, Ayanda, that it's also very conservative. Minister Lamola recommended to President Ramaphosa that a very conservative action be done. President Ramaphosa, under both the Constitution and the Correctional Services Act, has extraordinary powers to offer remission. What he's done instead is very careful. He simply advanced the parole dates of 19,000 prisoners. Those who are on the verge of being considered for parole anyhow are going to get there more quickly. So he's done that, and then I want to get back to you in a moment, but I'm going to stop talking to let you come in here. I want to get back to your second question, which is whether this goes far enough.
Absolutely. So as we have that conversation, of course, this moment has revealed a lot of the fault lines that exist in our society and brought to the fore, once again, the long-existent issues we've had in our prisons, overcrowding being one of the most salient ones. Do you perhaps get a perception that we'll now address those issues with a whole lot more urgency, given what COVID-19 has exposed?
Well, I hope so, and I went to the Johannesburg prison, popularly known as Sun City, Diepkloof Correctional Centre, on Tuesday morning for a visit with the National Commissioner, Mr. Arthur Fraser, and the overcrowding there in the remand centre, and that's one of the points I want to add to what we've been speaking about now. We're talking about sentenced prisoners. Our biggest problem of overcrowding, the minister, I know he's onto it, I know he's concerned about it, I know he has plans for it, but he hasn't been able to act yet, and I'm hoping he's going to act soon. In the Johannesburg Centre, it's built for something like 2,600 remand detainees. There are 6,600 there. Can you imagine that, Ayanda? Waking up this morning in a cell with 70 other people, which is built for 22. So I'm urging the minister, I know that he has it on his mind, I know that he has it on his action plan, to do something urgent with remand detainees. The other point I'd like to make, which is going back to your first question, does this sentenced prisoner release go far enough? In my view, my respectful view, the answer is no. We over-incarcerate. We use prison far too much in our society. We think prison is an answer to our crime wave. And I can assure your viewers, Ayanda, that it's not. So there's that whole debate that we have to have as well.
Absolutely. Nonetheless, we're hearing that the process will take about 10 weeks or so to unfold. I imagine it's because things are quite complex. But the situation on the ground, so to speak, is also changing quite rapidly. The pandemic, for instance, in 10 weeks will look very different. Are you foreseeing a situation where we have to revisit this in any case?
I fear so, Ayanda. The commissioner went down to the Western Cape 10 days ago, and he came back with rather somber news of what might be happening there. So I fear that that it could spread like wildfire. One doesn't want to be alarmist, but what the President has done is important, and I think you're quite right. We might have to do more in due course.
Absolutely. Now, Justice, since I have you on, I mean, you are considered to be one of the four thinkers in the crafting of our Constitution. We're also seeing a sort of raging debate on the sidelines, if you like, about the National Command Council, questions around its legitimacy, etc., etc. I do wonder if you have, any type of thought that you've sort of given to this issue and what you make of the questions being posed about that legitimacy at this moment.
I'm going to speak carefully because I don't want to become a general know-all pundit, but I would say that I'm very concerned about the width of some of the powers, and the second thing I'm very concerned about is parliamentary oversight. So I would certainly say that there are sources of concern, not just for lawyers, not just for constitutional bleeding hearts, but for ordinary citizens in the townships, in the suburbs, in their homes this morning. I think there are real sources of concern in the constitutional structure of our disaster management.
And as, of course, those concerns are raised, there's also been a lot of concern around the lockdown in its current form. We're hearing a whole host of comparisons, analogies, some people referring this moment to the times we shared in apartheid, a lot of reaction and backlash towards that kind of analogy. Give us your thoughts around that issue. I mean, do you feel that we're getting the right balance between saving livelihoods and preserving lives?
I'm not an economist, Ayanda, but I do think that I certainly read Professor Alex van der Heever from the Wits School of Governance, who's a very sober statistician. He says we're getting the balance wrongly between disease management and between economic catastrophe. And, of course, this is the difficult question, how do you choose? But may I just say, Ayanda, we make two easy comparisons with apartheid. What is happening now is not like apartheid. It has resemblances because, of course, less resourced people, poor people, suffer the brunt. They suffered the brunt under apartheid. They're suffering the brunt now. The hungry people, the marginalized people, the dispossessed in our society, who are still largely black. But I think we must remember that we have a responsive, accountable national government. We have a constitution. We have people like Minister Lamola, like President Ramaphosa, who take democracy seriously. So I'm just cautioning that we don't overuse an analogy from our history because you raised it.
All right, let's leave it there. Thanks very much for your time indeed. Certainly appreciate your time and your insights as always. That, of course, is Inspecting Judge for SA Prisons, Justice Edwin Cameron, live to us there via Skype.